Shabbat Tov. Happy Monday. I hope that everybody had a good weekend, good Shabbat, and of course, good Rosh Chodesh. It is Rosh Chodesh Nisan. It's the month that we became the Jewish people. It's our wedding month, and it's good news. We had 3 Torah books coming out this Shabbat. We had the Parshat on Rosh Chodesh. It was a very, very celebrative, which I hope that I said the word right, Shabbat. And as in every week, we are talking very briefly, going through the Parashat Shavua, the weekly Parasha, which this Parasha is Tazria, and it tells us about the very, very specific and spiritual disease of tzaraat, which in English they translated leprosy, but it's not quite. But we will use the word leprosy just to get a connotation in English in order to put us into the context. And this parasha is connected directly to the previous parasha, Parashat Shmini, with the number 8, which is the infinity, which we talked about, and we'll see how. And we'll see how this entire parasha is revolving around the creation of mankind, all the basic and fundamental foundations of the build-up of the Jew and the human being from inside and out, and how we have the power to create only in one area, because we basically cannot create. The power of creation belongs only to Hashem beside one area. So Parashat Tazria, let's start. So basically, the parasha is talking about a person who is getting inflicted with the very certain disease that is called tzaraat, which this disease is coming from the inside of the human being, outside. The minute that it comes on the surface, meaning on the skin, it's already the last stage of the disease, like with a lot of other diseases, where we understand that we have done something wrong from the inside, and there's certain imbalance, something that we didn't do right, and our soul, in this case of the disease, but in general, with any other disease, our bodies had come out from an imbalance, and now the last stage of it, which is the skin, the body or the soul in this case, telling us that we need to correct. How we correct? Of course, we do teshuvah. What is the deed that is connected directly to tzaraat? That is the infliction. That is, of course, lashon hara. Lashon hara is one of the worst sins that exist in Judaism, and basically it's very, very hard, some say even almost impossible, to correct. Why? Because when we talk in lashon hara, and when I say lashon hara, it's not only talking, it's also listening to lashon hara. It's also putting out a bad reputation for a person. Some people are speaking lashon hara and say, "What? I said the truth." Even if it's the truth, the entire truth, it's still putting out a bad name for a person. It means gossiping about somebody. All of these things are falling under the name of lashon hara. And when we talk lashon hara, hear lashon hara, or any of its sorts, then it's very hard to fix because other people hear it. And even though we're trying to fix it through them by giving a good impression on the person that we talked about now in order to correct it, the impressions that stays in their mind stays forever. You can't really change people's thoughts. So once we talk badly about a person, the mistake has already been made, the impression has already been made, and it's very, very hard to correct it. Just to sober you here, how Hashem takes very, very seriously the sin of lashon hara. Throughout all the Chumash, the Tanakh itself, the prophets, the kings, all of the books of the Tanakh, we see examples of how lashon hara is very, very bad. So in Proverbs, Pasuk 21:23, chapter 21, Pasuk 23, it says, those who guard their mouths and their tongues guard their lives, keep themselves out of trouble. And of course, we know the Chafetz Chaim was a master in Lashon Hara, teaching us over numerous books that he had wrote, and through his life story and episodes throughout his life, how Lashon Hara is very, very bad, and one should be careful from talking or listening to it like a fire in the forest, and run away from it. And I think that the best example of how Lashon Hara is bad is to observe our both two Bet HaMikdash. The first Bet HaMikdash was destroyed because we had made the three cardinal sins, which is murder, immoral, illicit relationships, and idol worshiping. And because of that, the first Bet HaMikdash was destroyed, and we went to an exile, but that exile lasted only 70 years. Then Ezra Sofer and Mordechai, a Yehudi, led us to the land of Israel, and we rebuilt the second Bet HaMikdash. The second Bet HaMikdash was destroyed because of the sin of Lashon Hara, who led us to the sin of baseless hatred. And for that sin, for the separation, for the division in Am Israel, because of the baseless hatred that was caused due to Lashon Hara, we were exiled and still in exile for over 2,000 years. So just to show you how the sages are teaching us that the sin of Lashon Hara, if you put it on a scale, okay, if you put all the possible sins that one can do on one side and Lashon Hara on the other, the Lashon Hara will tilt the scale. This is how bad Lashon Hara is. And just to give you an example how hard it is to fix Lashon Hara, because it's like a fire that spreads really, really fast. You know, one say a word thinking it's really innocent. I just told it to one person and I just said one word. I didn't even say a word. I just implied it was nothing. And it's the truth anyway. You know, like I didn't say a lie on the person, you know. So just to show you how it spread. So there's a story, I think it's in the Gemara, I'm not sure, but it was on this guy that spoke Lashon Hara. And he came to his rabbi and told him, I spoke Lashon Hara and now I want to fix it. How do I do that? So his rabbi says, okay, well, go do teshuvah. And after you do teshuvah, come back to me. The guy went, did teshuvah from his heart with broken heart and tears and came back to the rabbi. He said, okay, I did teshuvah. Now what do I do? So the rabbi says, go, collect a lot of feathers, put them inside a sack, go to the highest roof that you can find and start spreading them all over. So the guy said, is that going to fix my Lashon Hara? So the rabbi says, it's one of the stages, go try and do it. So he went, collected all the feathers that he could find, put them in a big sack, went up to the highest building and just started blowing them and spraying them in the wind. And when it was done, he came to the rabbi and said, okay, what's the next step? So the rabbi says, now it's the last step. And if you can complete it in full, you will be clear of Lashon Hara. So the guy says, okay, what's the last step? So the rabbi says, now go pick up all the feathers, collect all of them. The guy says, I can't. They've been blown in the wind. I can't even find some of them. There's no way. It's impossible. So the rabbi says, that's Lashon Hara. Once you put out one word out of your mouth, that's it. You can't bring it back. It's spread all over. You say it to one person, and then he said it to another person, and it's like fire. This is why the Chafetz Chaim used to run like a fire is about to catch him from every place that he was, even if he thought that there might be a chance to hear Lashon Hara. So this is how difficult and dangerous Lashon Hara. Our tongue is the only muscle in the body who is lying down. All of our body is standing, right, in a standing position. Our tongue is the only one lying, in order to symbolize that the tongue has to rest all the time. This is the most dangerous muscle in the body, and we have to keep it rested all the time. So let's see how the parasha reflects the sin of Lashon Hara and the tzara'at. So we know that in this world we can't create anything, okay? We're not creating anything from nothing. All the materials are being created from Hashem, okay? All the ingredients, everything that would bring to life the materials, the ingredients are in here. Hashem gives us the chokhmah, the wisdom in our brain in order to translate it to creation, okay? Medicines, science, everything is, any discovery that we're making, everything is existing already in the world, okay? And we just put it together like a puzzle because of the bina, the chokhmah, the wisdom that Hashem gives us. The only thing that we're creating is with our tongues, and that's speech. So we learned many times before that speech is what differentiates us, I hope I say this word right, from the animals, right? Because animals don't have the ability to think, and even more so, they don't have the ability to translate any thought to speech. And we learned in other parashas how speech creates, right? Hashem created the world through speech, right? And he gave the human being that ability. And this is why we're different than animals. It's called ruach memamela. We are able to speak, okay? We are able to think and then create the speech. And when we put out the speech out of our mouth, we're creating reality. This is why the parasha starts with pasuk number 2 that says, Daber el bnei Yisrael isha ki Tazria v'yalda zachar. Speak to Bnei Israel, Hashem said to Moshe, and tell them, a woman that will seed, meaning she will get pregnant, that will seed, and she gave birth to a male. What does that mean, that seed? We know that women doesn't seed. If any, the husband gives the seed and the woman gives the lives. She takes the seed and creates life out of it, but we don't implant the seed. So we learned that last year also. The process of creating a human being doesn't start from the body, okay? From the flesh and blood. It starts from the brain, from the thought. What happens? A man and a woman get married, love each other, starting to think about creating a child, and then go through the next stages for creating a child. But the sages teaches us that the stage of thinking about creating the child and how it will become is all depends on what the woman thinks in the moment of the procreation. So we learned how anything that a woman in pregnancy hears, feels, is being carved in the character and soul of the baby that is being built up inside her. Well, the sages teaches us that this process of thought is starting in the thoughts that the woman have while she's with her husband. Whatever the woman will think while she's being intimate with her husband, that's how her baby will be created. So if she watched a horror film an hour before, and now she's being intimate with her husband, and she thinks about that horror film, then I don't know, maybe she'll have a small Jason coming out of her, chas v'shalom. But it's a joke, but that's just to give you an idea. So we see how the process of procreation and creating a human being starts from here. We see it also through Parashat HaChodesh. There's a machloket in the Gemara. When was the world created? In Nisan or in Tishrei? We know that in Tishrei, Hashem finished creating Adam Arishon, and that was his birthday, right? But in Nisan, we accepted the Torah. We became the Jewish nation. We got married with Hashem. Both of the opinions, the opinion that says that the world was created in Nisan and the opinion that says that the world created in Tishrei, both of them are true. Why? Because the way that the Mefarshim are settling this machloket, this argument, is that they say that in Nisan, the world was created in the thought. Hashem just started to think about creating the world. That was the first stage. And then he created the Torah, and through the Torah, he created the world, which was finished being created in Tishrei. But it started in the thought. The creation of human being, of us, which is the pinnacle of the creation, started in here. And this is why it says that there are three partners in creating a human being. There's the father and the mother. Both of them gives the flesh and blood. Each one gives different organs. But whoever completes The creation is Hashem, is the third partner, is blowing from his mouth to our nose, is blowing the neshama inside. When? In the 8th day, with the Brit Milah. By doing the Brit Milah, which is discussed also in this parasha, basically Hashem and us are finishing the final product. We are doing the Brit Milah here, and Hashem is blowing the extra neshama, the Jewish neshama, into the child. Without this extra Jewish neshama, this spiritual add-in by Hashem, the child is nothing but flesh and blood. There's no high spirituality that connecting him to the number 8, which is the 8th day of Brit Milah, which is last parasha, which is elevated above nature. So this is how it's being created. This is the connection. So the words that the Torah is choosing to use when it comes to describe the tzarat, it doesn't only use the word tzarat, which is the name of the disease, it uses the phrase nega tzarat. Nega, it's infliction, and tzarat is the name of the infliction, okay? But the word nega is very, very special. We spoke about several times how in Hebrew, every word has a meaning. Well, not only it has a meaning, but some words you can read from the end to the start, the same like you read from the start to the end, and it will mean the same thing. Nega is one of, not the same thing, but yeah, it has double meaning. Nega is one of them. So nega, nun, gimel, ayin, means infliction. But if you read it from the end to the start, it will spell oneg, ayin, nun, gimel. Oneg means pleasure. What does that mean? So Hashem is teaching us a very, very important lesson. The nega tzarat wasn't a punishment. I wish we all would have this kind of connection and communication with Hashem today as we had back then, because the nega tzarat, the infliction of tzarat, was actually oneg, pleasure. Why? Because the minute that a person spoke lashon hara, immediately he got the infliction. That was a direct message for Hashem to clean himself and do teshuvah and correct. Today we know that Hashem is hidden and is not communicating with us loud and clear in a way that we can see it immediately like back then. So, and today is Hashem use extra measurement of mercy and patience because of the generations that went down and down over the millenniums. So if somebody today is doing something wrong, Hashem doesn't signal them immediately. Hashem waits. That's the measurement of mercy. Because we are way below the previous generations in our morality and spirituality levels, then Hashem is using extra measurements of mercy and patience in order not to chas v'shalom, bring us inflictions, bring on us immediate inflictions. But the shortcoming of that is that once we are doing something wrong, not always we know that we did something wrong. And even though eventually Hashem brings some inflictions on us, it's very hard to know what we did wrong, because Hashem is patient and Hashem is waiting. So for example, in Megillat Purim, we learned that Bnei Israel were sinned by bowing to the statue that Nebuchadnezzar had established and forced them to bow, and they did. But the infliction on that happened only 9 years later with Esther and Mordechai. So it took 9 years that Hashem waited for us to do teshuvah and return to him before he put the gezerah upon us. So that's not the best, because if we had known immediately that we did something wrong and do teshuvah, we could have saved all this trouble and misery and pain. So the nega of tzarat was actually a pleasure, because Hashem signaled us immediately. You did something wrong, go fix it. Clean yourself before you die and you come to me, and then the cleanup process, the laundry process will be much more harder. We always say that chas v'shalom, if we need to fix something and we need to to have some consequences on ourselves, I'll say it as a punishment, but we don't like to use that word because it's not very accurate in Judaism. But let's say punishments, we prefer to get punished here in this world, chas v'shalom, we will never know any pain or suffering, than in the next world, which is much harder to fix and be laundered. And that was Hashem's mercy and kindness to us by, bringing it immediately through the Negat Tzarat. And the Tzarat was very, 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 very special because once a person spoke Lashon Hara, it's not like he became white all over. He had small wounds spread in different places in the body that were white. Why? The spiritual explanation to that is very, very beautiful, because we know that Tzarat comes from the inside out. Something that our neshama did wrong, something that we came from the inside, is coming out with wounds, okay, different wounds in the body that are white. Why? To symbol to us that when we speak Lashon Hara about another human being, we see only the bad wounds in him, and we don't see the entire person. We speak only on a certain trait in him that maybe needs to be fixed up, and we judge him according only to that trait. But we don't see the beautiful person, human being that he is, with all of his other positive traits. It could be that the person is a little bit, jealous or frugal or dishonest. Could be. Telling lies, break Shabbats, could be. But he had a million other great traits that he does. He gives tzedakah, he does a lot of acts of kindness, he goes to daven 3 times a day, he puts the feeling on. All of these are great traits, but we don't look at them. We don't look at the person as a whole. We look at only the wounds that he has that needs to be fixed, and we judge his entire being according to that, and then we speak Lashon Hara. And this is why the Tzarat came as white wounds in very spread out places in the body. Why white? Because when you speak Lashon Hara about somebody, you're basically embarrassing them. And what happens when a person is embarrassed is blood from his face is rushing away, and we're becoming pale, right? Because we're embarrassed. So that pale color, that comes to a resemblance in the white wounds that appears on our body and needs to be fixed up. And this is what Hashem is trying to teach us. When you judge in a person, you need to judge them favorably, because even though you see a black dot in their character, first of all, we can't judge them because we're not perfect, okay? Where's our black dots? Where's the things that we need to fix up? So how dare we judge others when we need to fix ourselves first? And second of all, we have to remember that the person's soul is pure and clean and kind. It comes from Hashem, so it can't be bad. So the person himself is wonderful and does a lot of wonderful things. It is their decisions or their actions that might be mistaken, and it's only because they're humans. So we have to realize that the person is kind. He just misjudged his decisions, and he can fix it. And even when we look at the things that they do wrong, instead of judging them like criminals or bad person, we have to try to understand where they come from and what caused them to fall that way. The same way like in child discipline, okay, chinuch, when we discipline our children, if we'll come and tell them, oh, you're a bad boy, or you're a bad girl, how could you do it? You're embarrassing me. I can't believe it. I had enough with you. That's not going to be mechanech them. That's not going to give them the correct discipline, because it's only putting them down, making them lie to us the next time that they do it, because they're afraid of the hard discipline. But if we'll come and tell to our children, my son, you're such a tzaddik. You're doing so many good things. Your neshama is so bright and beautiful. this is why it's really weird to me that you did ABC. What made you do that? You probably felt so bad or so weak or so sad that it caused you to make this wrong decision into doing this. How can we fix it? How can we make sure that you won't go through this pain the next time so it won't lead you to make the wrong decision? You see the difference? We don't judge the child by his action. We judge him favorably by his soul, trying to understand where this action came from. I hope that it makes sense, but that's what Hashem is teaching us, and this is why the wounds are separate, because it's separate actions and decisions that doesn't reflect on the soul and the whole human being themselves. It's just little dots that came from place of pain, which brought them to do the wrong decision. And when we speak Lashon Hara, we actually look at them in a whole, in the window, in the spotlight of their wrong action, and that is wrong. And then we causing them to be embarrassed and pale and white and spread out the feathers of Lashon Hara without a possible easy solution to fix it up. And this is one of the reasons why the only one who could declare that it's the nega of tzarat was the Kohen. A person sees white wounds coming on his flesh. The natural thing, first thing to do is to go to the doctor, right? That's our ishtadlu. That's our part that we're doing in this world, right? We're using the elements in this world that Hashem gave us in order to try and find and fix what is wrong. But when a person went to a doctor or a healer, okay, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, whatever was existing back then, when he saw white wounds, even if the doctor knew by 100% that it's tzarat, he couldn't declare it and couldn't determine it. Why? Only the Kohen could, because it was a spiritual disease, not a physical disease. So even if the doctor would have said, yes, it's tzarat for sure, it wouldn't contribute anything to the fixing process because it was a spiritual disease and not a physical. Today, we know, after learning 3,000 years of Torah, that any infliction in our bodies are coming from a spiritual fix-up that we need to do, anything, okay? Because the Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the father is teaching us that there's no pain without a sin. Okay, so any pain that we're experiencing, maybe it's difficulties in parnasa, in livelihood, maybe difficulties with disciplining our children, chas v'shalom health issues, whatever it is, it always comes from something that we need to fix in ourselves spiritually. But if we concentrate with the nega tzarat, then only the Kohen. Why only the Kohen? So the sources are teaching us that the souls of the Kohanim are not regular souls. The souls of the Kohanim didn't come from the same place that the souls of the other Jewish people came. The souls of the Kohanim came from a very, very special place underneath the Kisei Kavod, the chair of Hashem, from a chamber of love. Why? Because the Kohen, in order to be a Kohen, has to stand in two conditions. First, he has to be from the dynasty of Aharon. They're the only ones who can be Kohanim. But second of all, the second condition is that they have to have a soul that is capable for compassion and love, is capable to judge the person favorably and see the entire person and not only the wounds in it, like we spoke right now. So when the person came to the Kohen to declare and determine whether it's a tzarat or not, the Kohen looked at the entire human being, well, like we just spoke of, and not only the tzarat, the wound itself, and then declared whether it's tzarat or not. And this is why the parasha teaches us that even if the Kohen knew 100% that it's tzarat, there were some times that he decided not to declare it, according to Torah, of course, because of the context. So, for example, because of the timing, I mean. So, for example, if it was a Yom Tov, and the person was celebrating Yom Tov, and he saw the white wound and went to the Kohen wouldn't declare that it's Tzarat until the Yom Tov was over. Why? Two reasons. First of all, because once he declares it's Tzarat, then it's becoming contagious and it could contage other people and then cause a lot of misery during Yom Tov. And second of all, because you have to separate the person from the camp, and you don't separate them while it's Yom Tov, because we are commanded to celebrate in Yom Tov. It's a holiday to Hashem. So the Kohen had to wait until Yom Tov was over in order to declare it and start the process of the tikkun. Same with Sheva Brachot. If a person would get married and on the wedding night or a day after or at any level and stage in the Sheva Brachot, he would see the wound, the Kohen wouldn't declare it. Why? First of all, not to prevent him from celebrating his wedding and his new marriage. And second of all, which is more important, not to cause problems with Shlom Bayit, that now his new bride will say, wait, I married with somebody who speaks Lashon Hara and sinning that much? Who did I marry to? I'm not sure that I want to stay married to him. So, and that teaches us a big, big lesson that even, and especially with our children and our husbands, spouses, even when it's time to give rebuke, we should always first judge favorably. Look at the person as an entire human being, like we spoke of, as a pure, good, righteous, and kind soul that does a lot of good things and only fail in certain things. And even when we do give rebuke, do it in the sandwich system, like we learned, first the compliment, then the rebuke in a very, very delicate and mild and gentle speech or wording, and finish with a compliment, and do it privately when nobody else hears, not to embarrass the person and not to cause harm. And then basically we're whitening their face again, and Tzarat. So that is a very, very, very special and big lesson that we have to learn. And this is why the Kohen was the one to declare whether the Tzarat is a Tzarat or not. And we see that in the Tomer Devorah book that we learned in the past by Rav Moshe Cordovero, which I recommend everybody, teaches us is that when Hashem finally have to bring an infliction on us, which he doesn't like to do, but he has to because we have to correct something, he always going to start with repels. The outside repel, the big repel, is going to be the first infliction, which is going to be the mildest one and the one that causing us the leastest of pain and suffering, which means, for example, it could be, I don't know, a person goes in the street and stumbles and falls. Okay, that's pain. Okay, so Hashem signals us, listen, you did something wrong. I'm going to make you fall in the street because I want to communicate with you that you need to fix something. Do self-introspection. Person does that, so Hashem goes to the inside repel, a little bit more inside, a little bit more tight. Now, person's parnasa is being affected. Oh, okay, Hashem took some of my parnasa. Okay, I need to do self-retrospection. I did something wrong. Let me fix it. Person still doesn't understand. Hashem goes to the more inner repel, gives him a hardship with raising his children and discipline. And this is how it goes. Inflicting is health, chas v'shalom. This is how it goes. And the source teaches us that if a person still doesn't learn to read Hashem's messages and fix, it's eventually being finished by Hashem taking the person out of the world. Why? Not because Hashem wants to kill the person and punish them. No, because Hashem says, okay, the person sinned. He doesn't understand my communication with him. He doesn't do self-retrospection. He doesn't go to his rabbi to ask them why he's going through whatever he's going through and what he needs to fix up. So I'll better take the person out of the world so he won't cause himself more harm by sinning, forcing me to bring even harder infliction to him and make it even harder to lander him in the next world just for his own good. Same like a parent. When your child is doing something wrong, you're not hitting them immediately or, I don't know, whatever severe discipline you're using. You're starting slowly and gently, trying to explain, trying to, show them the outcomes, this
the consequences. And if the child doesn't understand, then eventually you're being forced to use more harsher consequences. And this is how Hashem operates in the world. And of course, Hashem operates in the world like we learned through the Tomer Devorah and other sources in the past. Mida keneged mida. Hashem runs the world mida keneged mida. Measurements against measurement. What we do in this world towards ourselves, toward the world, toward others, is the way that Hashem will react to us and manage our lives and manage the world as a whole, the same way like we are operating. And we can see it through the sin of Lashon Hara as well. When do we speak Lashon Hara? We talk about a person's bad trait when that trait exactly exists in us. But since we can't judge ourselves, and we will never judge ourselves in a way that is not favorably, okay, because we are a prisoner in our own body, okay, and a prisoner can't set himself free. We can't see what we're doing, so we'll never judge ourselves. But when there's a trait that needs to be fixed up inside ourselves, and we're not addressing it, we see it in other people. And when we see it in other people, our subconscious know that that trait exists in us, but we can't judge ourselves, so we'll judge others according to that measurement. And Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the Father, teaches us that kamayim lamayim ken apanim lapanim. I'm trying to translate it like water to water, so does the face to the face. The same way like I'm looking in the water and I see my face, I'm seeing myself in the other image that in front of me. That way I see in other people myself and I judge in them instead of judging myself. That's Lashon Hara. Also, the sages tells us that Lashon Hara comes from a place of high pride. When do we speak Lashon Hara? When we're feeling like we're better than other people, when we building ourselves on the shoulders of other people by speaking Lashon Hara on them, making them look bad so we will look good. It's gaiva, it's a vanity sin. And this is one of the reasons why Hashem starting with the home, okay? Because if you build yourself on the shoulders of other people, I will start destroying you from your home, your possession, everything that you acquired, everything that gives you the respect that you, the honor that you're chasing so badly, okay, and go inside until it gets to our body. And this is what's so beautiful in the connection of this parasha to Rosh Chodesh. The word Chodesh comes from the word chadash, leitchadesh, to renew oneself. Chodesh, every month we renew ourselves, right? Like a woman, okay? Every month have a menstrual cycle, okay? Why? Because when every month the uterus is building the thick blood layers around it, waiting for life to become, when life is not becoming, the uterus starting the process of death, starting to dissolve all the waiting time for life, okay? So every month, a woman is renewing herself, okay? Connecting us directly to the procreation process that starts from the mind, okay? She's thinking new thoughts, positive thoughts, creating a child, right? Every month is renewal, okay? And this is exactly the pleasure in the tzarat that Hashem brought upon us, because He gives us the opportunity to renew ourselves and build us up like the new month. So, for example, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Pesach, always begins in the spring. Why? This is why we have a year with 2 Adars, okay, leap year, because the sages have to make sure that Pesach will fall on the spring. Why? Because in the spring, all the world are being renewed, right? The flowers are blooming, the trees are flourishing, the animals are starting to procreate. It's a renewal process, like in the Chodesh of Nisan, like in Pesach. Funny enough, the word Pesach means pe, mouth, sach, speech. Mouth that talks, Pesach, meaning we have to renew our speech always in order to create good things, positive things. How positive things being created? A thought creates reality. We know that from other areas also, not only Judaism, what you think is what's going to be. That's what distinguishes from the animals. We're starting to think about something, then automatically we talk about it. And this is how Lashon Hara also starts. It's not like we see in a person and start talking about it. First, it starts here. We're starting to think badly about a person. Then, whether we want it or not, because our thoughts are connected directly to our speech, we're starting to talk about them. So the way to start to avoid speaking Lashon Hara about somebody, or even hearing Lashon Hara about somebody, is to judge them favorably. Always think about them positive thoughts, even when it seems that we can't see anything positive about them. If we'll just sit for a few minutes and think about it, we will find for sure positive aspects within them, and that will prevent us from talking Lashon Hara about them. And that's what is so beautiful with the way that Hashem created us in His image. He thought about creating the world and human being, and His thoughts were positive because Hashem is all good. And then He spoke and created human being to be in His image and have these abilities at the same time. It's amazing. And when we speak good speech, when we're creating with our mouth, we are elevating ourselves to the 8th level, to the spiritual, to above nature. We are elevating ourselves above the natural flesh and blood that we are. This is why the soul is being injected inside by Hashem in the baby in the 8 days. Funny enough, in Yetziat Mitzrayim, when Hashem wanted to take out Bnei Israel from Egypt, okay, which weren't Bnei Israel back then, they were the Hebrews, okay, the judgment measurement came to Hashem and told him, why do you want to take them out of Egypt? They're no different than the Egyptians. They're idol worshiping and they're idol worshiping. Both of them are idol worshiping. They have no mitzvot in the merit, okay, to take them out of Egypt. So what's the advantage that they have over others? And Hashem knew that it's correct. So he went to Moshe and told him, okay, to give them the mitzvah of Korban Pesach, the Pesach offering, so they'll have at least one merit that he can shush up the judgment measurement. But Moshe told him, I would love to do it, but in order to do the Pesach offering, you have to be circumcised, and they're not circumcised. And that is the first mitzvah that we did, their circumcision, the 8th, in order to elevate the Hebrews, Bnei Israel, above nature, in order to take them out of Egypt and shush the measurement judgment. And what is the first mitzvah, the action mitzvah that we got to do? The Rosh Chodesh Nisan. The power of renewing oneself and the renewing Jewish customs and holidays and Rosh Chodesh and Pesach every year after year after year is occurring. The power of renewal, that's one of the foundations in the connection and communication between us and Hashem and in Judaism as a journey at all. You know who we can learn really wonderful about the power of renewing oneself and looking at everything like new, even though it's reoccurring in machzoriyut, in cycle? Little children, babies. Babies, no matter how many times they will see the same thing look new to them, like it's the first time that they've seen it. Whoever is a parent, whoever is a nanny, like me, okay, can testify how babies shaking the same rattle every time, and it's their favorite toy, even though it makes one sound, and they play with them with that thing for 6 months. And every time that thing seems like a new thing. Every time that I take my babies out for a walk, same course, every single time, same trees, same buildings, same everything, the baby looks at it as if it's the first time. It is from taking care of babies that I learned how we should practice Judaism in the right way. Babies are innocent, their hearts are pure. Everything to them is wonderful. I learned for them how to slow down my pace, how to notice every single thing around me, even though logic says that I should submit to mundanity already because I've seen the same thing for like 30 years, 40 years. But it is through babies and the way that they react when they see mommy or daddy, even though they already used to them, or they see in the same toy or the same tree and feel the same breeze. It is for them that I learned, the power of renew oneself and looking at everything in brand new eyes as if it is the first time and maybe the last time that I will ever see it. And this is how one learns how to appreciate everything in his world, inside himself and in Judaism, and how one cherishes it because it looks at the same thing in new eyes all the time. And when you cherish something, you want to preserve it and keep it as new. So you will always fight to keep it like that. And that is the power of Teshuvah. Through Teshuvah, Hashem tells us, okay, so you submitted to mundanity because you do the same thing over and over again. And now you're not practicing Judaism as you should, as I wish you would. But then you realize it. So after you fall, you get up, brush your clothing, and renew yourself and the connection between us through Teshuvah. And now it's new. And not only it's new, but it's even better than before because the connection is tighter. Now we spoke about Teshuvah many times and how it's strengthening the connection between us and Hashem. So take 5 minutes. Look at your children, especially if you have little children. See how they get enthusiastic and amazed and surprised by everything around them. And that will be a great lesson to you that we're not raising them. They are raising us. We're not teaching them. They're teaching us. This is why the prayers of Tinokot Bet Rabban, the babies of the Jewish nation, their prayers and their Torah that is being learned and being pronounced by their lips, expressed, is the most cherishable to Hashem, even more than the biggest tzaddik, because their Torah and their connection to Hashem is pure and strong and naive through faith, not through that and knowledge, just pure faith. And the holiday of Pesach is nothing but faith, just faith. And if you'll see the next Torah piece that I will submit in my groups is talking exactly about the difference between chametz and matzah that came from the Rabbi Milubavitch, and he explains how matzah symbolizes the pure faith without da'at and knowledge, just straight with Hashem, pure faith without the interference of the intellect, which is good also because Hashem taught us or told us to know him through intellect, but not in Pesach. In Pesach, it's nothing but faith, like babies and little children believe in Hashem. And this is why we allow them to sing the song of Man Nishtana, not because necessarily they're asking, what is this holiday? What's so changed? What had changed between this night and the other? No, they are not asking us. They're telling us, look what changed in this night comparing to other nights. They are stating, they are teaching us, they're not telling us the power of renewal. This Negatzarat is a direct reflection to Hashem's mercy towards us. Because with his mercies, I hope I say it right, mercies, he reflected and communicated to us directly when we did something wrong and allow us to fix ourselves, renew ourselves, okay, and start anew. The beautiful thing is that we spoke about how a woman is getting renewed through her womb, through her uterus, right? The uterus is the creating element in the woman's body. Uterus in Hebrew is called rechem, resh chet mem, rechem. And we spoke how in Hebrew, every word, not every word, but there are words that have different meanings to the same word. The word rechem comes from the word rachamim, mercy. So the renewal and the creation comes from mercy. Same like Hashem. It's so beautiful, isn't it? I love this idea. Today, we don't have the Negat Sarat, okay, because as we spoke of, Hashem has hidden himself because of the wrong things that we have been doing. Some Gedolim I've heard in the past suggested that, Gedolim is the leaders of generation, suggested that the Tzara'at of today is the disease of cancer, because cancer is a plague. Every one of us had somehow touched in this horrible plague of cancer, or knew somebody who touched. And we know, it makes sense to me at least, we know that cancer, today we know that, I mean, we knew that in the past also, but medicine and science didn't really admit that, but today they do admit that cancer is connected directly to the inside. Whatever is happening inside a human being, that is what inflicting the cancer. So his lifestyle, his stress level, the things that he eats, his nutrition, his way of life, his fears, all of these are directly connected to the cancer. So we know today that if a person is fixing himself from the inside, changing the style, the lifestyle, changing the nutrition, reducing or even eliminating stress levels, etc., etc. In most cases, he can cure himself from cancer, of course, with the help of doctors. This analogy makes a whole lot of sense to me, at least. Why? Because like we said right now, if we look at cancer, it comes from the inside towards the outside, same like tzara'at, same like lashon hara. But not only that, a cancer starts from one single cell. A cancer cell, one little white wound, right, of infliction. And if we don't fix it immediately, if we don't catch it on time, it starts spreading out in a less controllable way all through the body, same like lashon hara, same like tzara'at. So it makes a whole lot of sense to me. And now a lot of, many of the Rebbeim that I heard at least say that the cancer plague is connected directly to the sin of lashon hara. And when a person, lo alenu chas v'shalom, we all know health and long life and everything. When a person gets inflicted by cancer of any kind, he should do self-retrospection, and do teshuva and fix the sin of lashon hara. It could be listening to lashon hara, speaking lashon hara, speaking a gossip, putting out bad name for a person, who knows. And it's not necessarily in our immediate past, like the nearest past. It could be years before, because we spoke about how Hashem is waiting long time until he finally being forced by us to bring gzeros on us. So that's what the sages says. And if that's the case, Be'ezrat Hashem, then, then that's a direct communication for Hashem, which is, as we spoke of, is measurement of mercy. So I hope that this class made sense, and I hope that I was able to communicate it in a good and understandable way. And I will finish with only blessings. We are entering the month of Nisan, which is the month of redemption, of Geulah. The Rebbe Milovavitch says that when he speaks about the Machloket, when the world was created, he says that the world was created in Kafei in Adar, 25th in Adar, which is the last day before Rosh Chodesh Nisan. And it started in the thought. And he connects it directly to the process of redemption. He says that the process of redemption, both Hashem redeeming us and us redeeming ourselves, like we spoke of, starts in here. When we do a shift of mind, change our train of thought to be connected to Hashem, to be positive, to be Torah way, okay? And we're bringing it to fruition and reality, like in Tishrei, when the world was created, by our speech and our actions, then we bring the redemption. And we know that the Gemara tells us that Bnei Israel were redeemed in Nisan, right? We came out of Egypt in Nisan, and we will be redeemed again in Nisan. So I wish us all to see Mashiach Be'ezrat Hashem, if Hashem wants, this Nisan. May we all get to see Bet HaMikdash this year Be'ezrat Hashem. And the way that we do it is that we're all taking upon ourselves to change our train of thought, the way that we think, the way that we connected to Hashem, the way that we're creating. And instead of putting out separation by talking Lashon Hara and separating people from the Jewish, away from the Jewish people, this is why the Metzora, the guy with the Tzara, was separated from the camp, because by speaking Lashon Hara, he implemented baseless hatred and separated whoever he spoke of from the nation, right? So instead of doing that by listening or hearing Lashon Hara or talking about people, we will think only positive and bring baseless love and unity in the Jewish people by fixing ourselves and fixing our families and fixing our communities and fixing the Jewish people and bringing Mashiach Be'ezrat Hashem this Nisan. Can you imagine that for a second? Just close your eyes and imagine, just be there, that maybe, just maybe, this Nisan, maybe we will be merited to bring Korban Pesach to Bet HaMikdash, the final and permanent Bet HaMikdash in Eretz Israel. Be'ezrat Hashem. May Hashem bring us redemption, baseless love and unity, and help us all through direct and clear communication, fix ourselves and elevate ourselves to the 8th level above nature and the 50th gate of Kedusha. Have a good Chodesh. I love you all. Happy Pesach.